again. Okay. Today we're going to start on Lamed Daled. It's 34a. Daled Amud Aleph. Shilim v'Ratzli Shava. Thank Hashem that we're able to learn Torah every day. Most of our learning we should have based on Migdash. Learning in the Leuli Nishmas. Have a golden bus for Benjamin. And remember the name, Zevi. Rabbi needs a refuah shleima. Okay, we learned that the double payment that the thief pays was stolen from the house of a watchman. So there are times when the double payment is given to the watchman, not to the original owner, and that would be if the watchman had agreed to compensate the original owner for the loss. So then he would then acquire the kefil. The Mishnah said if he pays and he doesn't want to swear, since he would have been able to exempt himself through an oath, the watchman would have been able to exempt himself through an oath. And he would have been able to get out of it. So the fact that he is willing to pay, or that he actually pays, that's enough that the owner says, okay, so I'm giving you the double payment. Now, Amar Metzia Daf, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Metzia Daf, a major student of Rabbi Yochanan, he says in his teacher's name, Rabbi Yochanan, he says, Le shilim shilim mamash alakivan sham hareini mishalim afkish le shilim. The original owner is so delighted that the watchman is working together with him that he lost the item. Just the fact that he says that I'm willing to pay, he's not going to take him to court. He doesn't need to take the watchman to court. That's enough for him to already say, okay, you've acquired the kefil. Now, what would happen then is that if they find the ganav, then the kefil would already go to the watchman. Of course, the watchman would have to pay the original owner for it, but the double payment would end up by the watchman. The extra payment would end up by the watchman. Just the fact that he agreed to it, that he doesn't have to go to court, it becomes like an independent debt that he owes him. But he's already acquired the animal, and the kefil would go to the watchman. That's what Rabbi Yochanan said. He doesn't have to actually pay for it; just has to agree to pay for it, and that's enough that the original owner says, okay, I'm very happy with this arrangement, and you can have the kefil.
Does that work that he tells the owner, like we'll look for the ghana, and if we don't find them, I'll still give you the money, and then he would only pay the owner like one time?
Yeah, could be.
So it's as if he's already made a kinyan?
Yeah, well, what we were saying before is that the kinyan was made at the time of the giving of the animal to the shomer, or possibly an hour before what was that, Reb Zvid, who said that the Ikadamri and Rava, I'm sorry. Ikadamri and Rava, Samach Lignei Vasa Kinuyalach. It's already acquired to you, Samach Lignei Vasa. But by his chutzner. The kinyan was made on the animal, not on the kefil. Yeah. Well, the Gemara says, let's take a look at this. Let's analyze the statement that it's a difference between actually paying and agreeing to pay.
Is this a case of paid watchman or not paid?
So far, we've been talking about a not paid watchman, a shemer chinam, because the Mishnah said, because since he could have sworn and gone free by theft if it was stolen, so now that he's agreeing to pay, so that's his own initiative. He's doing extra. Tanan, we learned in the Mishnah, Shilim v'Leratz Shava. If he pays and he doesn't want to swear. Now, the Mishnah says clearly, if he pays, what are you telling me, Rabbi Yochanan, that if he agrees to pay, Shilim in, lai Shilim lai? You're making this up. The Mishnah doesn't say if he agrees to pay. The Mishnah says if he actually pays. Let's go further. If he swears, but he doesn't want to pay, that's talking about when he does not acquire the kefil. That's when talking about the second case in the Mishnah, where the kefil goes to the original owner. Why? Because it says he swore and he doesn't want to pay. Time of the leiratza. What's the reason why it goes to the original owner? Because leiratza, because he does not want to pay. But let's say he would want to pay, even if he didn't pay. So if we look at the Mishnah and we try to be medayek in the Mishnah, we're going to come out with contradictory implications. Doesn't mean that he mamish needs to pay. It doesn't mean that he just wants to pay. So okay, the Mishnah is not going to be a good proof for us one way or the other. The Gemara says we can bring a brisa that supports the statement of Rabbi Yochanan. Brisa says like this: someone rents a cow from his friend, Benignava, and it got stolen. Now, the truth is that a renter has to pay for it. However, it doesn't mean that he has to claim that it got stolen. The renter could have claimed, if he wanted to lie, he could have claimed that it was an accident. Nine-ness happened. I had locked the gate. It didn't get stolen. Everything was double locked in this. And how did it go? It's an inus, mamish an inus. I did a level of watching that covered all my responsibility. So v'amar hala, but however, the shemer says, not the shemer, it's the seicher, the renter says, hareini mishalim ve'ein nishma. I'm willing to pay. I'm not going to swear. No. Okay. Yeah. Shemer secher. Yeah, exactly. So a seicher and a shemer secher here would have the same category. So and I don't want to swear. And then they find the ganav. Look at that. It goes to the seicher. Now it goes to the renter. Now that's not our main point there. There is a chiddush here that even though he would be chayav by saying the truth, but the fact that he could have not said the truth is already enough for the owner to give him the payment. Now, we didn't learn that in the Mishnah. In the Mishnah, we thought we were talking about only a shemer chinam that would be exempt by saying nignava, and he decides to pay anyway. Yeah, it's very interesting. Taisva said to be on the page before nignavu. It says, even if the shemer chinam would say that I was absolutely negligent, I left the door open and I'm so sorry, I just forgot to lock it, or I left the gate open, pashati, and therefore I'm going to pay. So the same halacha applies, that the shemer gives him the kefil, that the owner gives the shemer the kefil, and the reason is because he could have said that it was a regular theft. So the fact that he's making the case easier for the he's not putting up a fight, he's not, which he could have, that's enough for him to give him the kefil. Okay, so now that's one chiddush, but that's not our point. Our point is over here that the seicher is not saying that he's not actually paying. He's just saying, hareini mishalim, I'm willing to pay. That's a raya to Reb Chia Baraba's statement in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, that even if you're willing to pay, that's enough to already acquire the kefil, the double payment. Amar Rav Papa, okay, that's a raya. Amar Rav Papa, Rav Papa comes along and says, shemer chinam, even shemer pashati. When a shemer chinam, this chiddush that we mentioned before, Rav Papa spells it out. A shemer chinam that says pashati, that says that I'm negligent, makne lekvela, he gets the kefil. Because he could have said that I'm exempt, because it very easily exempted himself by saying it got stolen. He didn't have to add in the detail that he left the door open. Yeah, Rabbi Fishel Schechter over here. It's very interesting. Anyway, he has this story about an uncle of his that was in Los Angeles, and he went into a hotel. He was a diamond dealer, went into a hotel. When he comes out, he sees that his car was open and they took the briefcase with his diamonds in it.
He left the briefcase with that.
So he left it in the car,
Very interesting.
and he went in for a minute. Just went in to see a
Oh.
park or whatever. Left it in. Anyway, he calls the police. The police come and said, was the car locked? So he said, no. The police says, don't say that. You're not going to get insurance. Don't say that. He says, but it wasn't locked. Anyway, he spent the rest of his life paying off the debt that he had because of that. But he wouldn't say that. Anyway, over here, over here, he says, I'm sorry.
He's very righteous.
Right. Right. So the guy could have given a hard time. He could have said that it was a gneva and he would have been potter. But he decided to say he was negligent. He decided to say I didn't lock the door. So, oh, you're such a good guy. I'm going to give you the kefil. Shemer Sacher. Even though at the same time you can imagine the guy is saying pashati. He's saying I'm negligent. There's an owner. Okay, there's Reuven and Shimon. Let's say Reuven is the owner, Shimon is the shomer. So Reuven is furious with Shimon. Why didn't you lock the door? But at the same time, he's happy. He says, I didn't lock the door. Look, I'm willing to pay. Okay. Shemer Sacher, Kiman Shemer Nignava, Shemer Sacher, the same thing. Shemer Sacher is chayav for gneva. But if he says that it was stolen, so Maknalei Kvela only gives him the kefil, because he could have exempted himself by saying that it died or it got broken or whatever. Another type of exemption.
Oh, the thief took him from the car.
Yeah.
He should have returned it because the door was so open. He should have split it at least with him.
Right. So thank you for the.
Making it easy. They never caught the thief.
No. I think nowadays they have like the diamonds they have marked. Someone told me they have marked every diamond they know. I don't know. Okay. Next case is Shoyel. What about the borrower?
The rabbi could have he was also smart because a lot of times they'll break your window and still take it. So then you will have to pay for the broken window. Leave it open, they take it in the same.
Shoyel Shemarina Mishalim, a Shoyel that says that I'm willing to pay. He does not get the kefil. He doesn't get the double payment. But what could he have claimed to have exempted himself? Does he have an easy claim there? He could have claimed that it died while I was working with it. Is he a borrower? He borrows a machine or whatever it is, an animal to work with it. If it dies during the work, then he's not obligated. It's like a rental car that dies while you're driving it. You're not obligated for that. That's exactly why I borrowed it, right? So, but he can't claim that because that's very uncommon. It's common for other things to happen. It's very improbable that it dies while you're working it. So, therefore, that's not a good claim. So, the way we're viewing this is that the shayl never really has a way out. Theoretically, he could have a way out, but it's so improbable that it's not counted. Ikadamri, there are those that say differently. Amar of Papa Shel Nami, Kivan Shamar, Reina Mishalim, Makan Fela, the boy Patanafshe Bemismachos Malacha. No, he has another claim. If he has a loophole, he could have gotten out from payment. And the fact that he's agreeing to pay by claiming that it was even if it was a minus, but he's agreeing to pay, so he gets the kefil. The owner says, okay, you're not giving me a hard time, I'm giving you the kefil. Now, I just want to point out that in this Ikadamri, Rav Papa says the shayl can also get out. The words of Rav Papa were even Amar Hareini Mishalim, even when he says that I'm willing to pay. Okay. Amali Rav Zvid Hachi Amar Abaya.
Are we missing the body? The guy says, "Oh, the animal died." But okay, so where's the body of the animal?
Yeah. Somehow we have to figure out a case where, and it
Jumped off the cliff.
It started to smell, so I fell off the cliff. I don't know.
Huh.
They take to accounting that he could have sold maybe the body to a goy and gotten some money out of it.
Yeah, I mean, all of these things are possible. And so when he's saying that he's chayav, when he's saying that he's willing to pay. The owner is saying, well, you could have gotten out of it by saying that it died because during work you didn't get out of it. So I'm willing to give you the kefil. So Amalei Rav Zvid Mishmei Amalei Rav Zvid. Rav Zvid said to Rav Papa, Achi Amar Abaya. Abaya said, Shayal Yeshalim. Doesn't work like that by the borrower. By the borrower, it's not just if he says, I'm willing to pay. The shayl has to actually pay. Different than the other shaymer. The other watchman, the unpaid watchman, the paid watchman, the renter. If they just agree to pay, according to Rabbi Yochanan and according to Rav Papa, that's enough. But by the shayl, only if he actually pays. My time, what's the reason? Because he basically has all the benefits here. He just borrows something, he uses it, and then he returns it. Just with words, he's not going to get the kefil. The words are nothing. Pay the money, and then you can get the kefil as well. But the words are not enough. Okay. I think the understanding over here is that, of course, he's gonna be agreeable. Agreeable he's going to be. The question of he's going to actually pay. That's would make the difference. We have a raya that supports what Rav Zvid said in the name of Abaya. It says like this: a shayl para, a support. A shayl para mechavera. If someone borrows a cow from his friend, v'nignava, and it gets stolen. V'chidim hashayl v'shilim. Ah, you see that? The borrower proceeds. He jumps forward and he pays right away. And then we find the thief. So the double payment goes to the shayl, goes to the borrower. But if you notice over here, the expression was v'kidem hashayl v'shil. He went ahead right away and he paid. It didn't say va'amar hareini mishalim, and I'm willing to pay. He said he actually went and paid. That's when he gets it. It's a good deal. Gemara says, "Lishna kamader of Papa badei lei havitiyov." This is a little surprising the way the Gemara is twisting things here. Rav Papa originally says that the shayl never gets the kefil. That was the first statement of Rav Papa, only by the other ones. Because how could he get out of it? He's going to say Mesa Machmas Malacha, that's so uncommon. The Gemara says, well, what about this brisa? The brisa says the shayl gets the kefil. He says, I can resolve that. When the first statement of Rav, what was the first statement of Rav Papa talking about? That's if he said, I'm willing to give the kefil. I'm willing to make the payment, but not if he actually paid. If he actually paid, that's a different story. So the brisa is talking about where he actually paid. And the first version of Rav Papa was when he was willing to pay. Lishna Basra, but according to the second version of Rav Papa, where he says, I'm willing to pay, he gets the kefil. And now it says only if he actually pays, he gets the kefil. Let us say that this price is a contradiction to what Rav Papa is saying. Papa says he has to be willing to pay. And the brisa says that he has to just actually pay. Only if he actually pays. The brisa is supporting Rav Zvid and not Rav Papa. The kasha and Rav Papa. Amlach Rav Papa. Rav Papa could answer you like this: Mi alima mi masnisen. Do you think that brisa is stronger than the Mishnah? Dichtani shilim v'kimna ba'amar hachanami ba'amar. Look at the Mishnah. The Mishnah said if he pays and he doesn't want to swear, and comes along Rabbi Yochanan and says it doesn't mean that he actually pays. It means he's willing to pay. So payment doesn't mean payment. Payment means he's agreeable. So too in the brisa, when it says that he goes ahead and pays, it just means that he's agreeable. The same way that you didn't have a problem reinterpreting the Mishnah to mean that payment doesn't mean payment. It just means agreeing to pay. So too in the brisa, we'll say the same thing. The Gemara says, no, you can't do that. It says, mi dummy. How can you compare? Hasam like tanikidim, hachik tanikidim. The Mishnah doesn't say the kidem v'shilem. He went forward, he went ahead, and he paid right away. In the brisa, it says kidem. It says that he went ahead and he paid right away. The Gemara answers, my kidem. What does it mean, kidem? That he went I don't know how they translate, proceeded or came first. Translate kidem. Went ahead. Okay. Kidem Amar. He went ahead and he said that he's willing to pay. Okay, fine. We got out of it. The Gemara says, 1 second. You can't do that. But we had a brisa before. Tanika v'seder Rabbi Yochanan, that by the seicher, by the renter, that says when a renter he rents a cow from his friend that gets stolen, and then the person says, "I'm willing to pay," that's enough, and that was approved to Rabbi Yochanan. And then we have another brisa that says that he went ahead and he actually paid by the shayel. So you see a clear contrast between by the seicher and by the shayel. Over there it says he said that he's going to pay, and over here it says he went ahead and paid. So it says it must be specific, because if you're changing the language, then it must be specific. The Gemara says that would only be a good proof if both of these brises were said by the same person and they were taught together. But if they came from two different authors, then maybe the two different authors have different ways of different writing styles, and that's not a proof. Midi Gabi Hadadi Tanya, were they taught together? Gemara says, Shailino l'tanoi debei Reb Chia debei Rabbi Shivam Gabi Hadadi Tanya. We asked the students in the yeshiva of Reb Chia and Rabbi Shia, those were the editors of the brises. They were the experts in the brises. They said, yes, those two brises were taught together. If that's the case, then it's specific when it says that he actually paid. It would be a kasha on the second Rav Papa. Okay. The Gemara now says the following is obvious, but we have some questions following after that. Pshita. This case is going to be obvious. Amar Eini Mishalim. If the guy says, I'm not paying, because of Amar Eini Mishalim, and then he says, okay, I'm going to pay. So Amar Eini Mishalim. The fact that he didn't have to go to court, that's enough. He says, okay, thank you very much. You get the kefil. Okay. What's our questions? Ella. However, our questions are, Amar Hareini Mishalim. If he says, I'm willing to pay. And the Chazav Amar Hareini Mishalim. And then he says, I changed my mind. I'm not paying. And they find the thief. Does he get the kefil now? Because he agreed once that he's going to pay. So what's it then? Do we say that, what do you mean he should get the kefil? He changed his mind. He's not paying. He's now the next step is court. If we go to court, for sure you're not getting the kefil. Maybe he actually is going to pay. He just doesn't have the money. And we know when people don't have the money, sometimes they say, I don't owe you. They how do you know I owe you?
He said he was going to pay before or after the thief was found.
He said, before they found the thief, I'm going to pay. And then he changed his mind and says, I'm not going to pay. And then they found the thief. So right at the wrong time for the Shomer, they found the thief. So he said, now he's claiming, I didn't really mean I'm not paying. I didn't have the money. So okay. Amar, next question. Amar Hareini Mishalim. He says, I agreed to pay. Umeis, and then he dies. Amar Banav, and the sons say, we're not paying. So we're going to go to court. Or we're going to take the oath or whatever. So what's the din? Are they retracting? Maybe they're just postponing the payment, and you put this up like people did with their foreclosures, when they owed money on the house. So they got these lawyers to postpone and say we don't really owe. Hey, it lasted 10 years. They're still doing okay, fine, I'll pay. So okay. Shomu Banim Mai. Let's say the sons actually paid. This is very interesting. See here, the father dies, Shomer, and the sons paid up right away. Metzia Daf, and then they find the thief. So, but the original can say, who would I have given the kefil to that would only be to your father? Because he was very nice to me. But you, I never would have lent you the animal. Yeah, I don't like you guys. I thank you for paying, but that's not enough to get the kefil. Your father was a nice guy. I would have given the kefil. Maybe there's no difference. Maybe it doesn't have to do with all the background to this. We're talking about someone that's lending someone else an item, and then the person isn't paying. It says after all of that kindness that they have with one another, then he's going. Or maybe you don't say that. And you say it's just the dry payment of the money is enough for the original owner to agree to give the watchman the kefil. Shilim labanimai. What happens if he paid to the sons of the original owner? So Metzia, what's it then? Metzia Amrle, maybe they could say to him, our father was a good friend of yours, and therefore he would have given you the kefil. But us, regarding us, we don't do that. We're not your friends. We never would have lent it to you in the first place. Or maybe it doesn't matter. It's the dry fact that he paid. Shalmu banim labanim. Let's say the sons of the borrower or the shomer paid to the sons of the original owner. What's the din over there? There's really no connection to the background. Seems to be all the same question. Shile mechza. What happens if he says, I'm willing to pay half? Sometimes people come up with these things. I'm willing to pay half. I know I feel bad for the loss. I'm going to pay you half. So does he get half the kefil? That's a good question. All of this is really a question in psychology. All of these questions is all a psychology question. It's not really like a halachic question. It's what would the original owner be agreeable to when they find the thief? Then in this kefil that's on the table, then the original owner says, "What do you mean? It's mine." But the question is, at the time when those payments were made, would he say what was he agreeing to at that point? So okay, very nice, paid half. I would agree to give you half the kefil.
We were talking about Daniel Kahneman yesterday. These are the kinds of questions that he studied. How do people make choices in financial matters?
Right. And then afterwards, when they change, they change their story a little bit later when there's money at stake.
Yeah.
And I think the conclusion that they're not rational at all, right? Something like that, they're a lot less rational than we think they are about financial decisions.
Yeah.
With the same logic we apply, like when there's this like borrower, then the owner's so happy that he's willing to pay him. But this case is not for the whole animal,
Right.
like for half the animal. Would that same logic apply?
Yeah, that's what we're asking. Would he say that, okay, I'm willing to give you half the kefil, half the double payment because of that? If you say that no, so shol shtei paris v'shilim. Let's say he borrowed 2 cows, v'shilim achas me'am, and he pays one of them. Do we say that for each one we look at it individually, and we say, look, he paid the whole cow? For that one, this one he doesn't. There's no kefil. He doesn't give them because he didn't pay for it. But for the other one, he gives them the kefil because he paid for the whole cow. Let's say he borrows from 2 partners and he pays one of them, so which means he pays half the value. He pays half the value. Now we think that he should get half the kefil. Now over here, he's paying one individual the whole value of it. So that person should give him all the kefil, at least based on what that person had. So next case, let's say there were 2 partners that were borrowing, and then one of them decided to pay. So does that one individual get the kefil, or do we say that it works to both together? Let's say someone borrowed an animal from a woman, and when it came to paying for it at the end, when it got damaged, lost, whatever, stolen, he gave the money to the husband. Now the husband is considered like a apotropos, like a caretaker of his wife's property. You're talking about nichse malog. This property actually belonged to the woman. She brought it into the marriage. This cow that was part of the dowry. She came with the cow, and the husband is allowed to use the cow for all his work, for whatever he needs. But the actual item itself belongs to the woman. And now when it came to payment, the payment went to the husband. So do we say that the woman gave the kefil to the shomer because he paid for it, or do we say no, it didn't go directly into her pocket, it went to the husband? Isha shashala. Maybe she could be an extension of him because what she acquires could belong to him, but he is like taking the money, and she now has to get the money from him. not really, that's part of the question, I guess. Places has a different way of learning. One of the ways of learning is that he borrowed from the woman before she was married, and he returns it after she's married, and it goes to the husband. The Rivan has another pshat. There's several pshatim over here that maybe he borrowed from the woman and she died, and he returned it to the husband, and that's the question. That question we sort of had before. Okay, now it says Isha shashala v'shilam bailamai. Let's say a woman borrowed, but the husband agreed to pay. So do we say that the kefil would now go to the husband? It's interesting. Okay, the Gemara leaves all of these with the teku. Amar Rav Huna. Rav Huna comes in and introduces a solution to a problem. Amar Rav Huna says, Mashpina sishvur sheina b'shusei. Whenever a person says that I'm willing to pay, even though he's such a good guy, but nevertheless
his
chiddush, yeah.
This is his takana.
It seems like that. Seems like it's his chiddush.
It's not from previous generations.
When we're going to have a brisa that we're going to ask on that, based on the brisa, we should have had a solution. It must be that he's saying from earlier generations. Otherwise, we'd say, well, that was instituted later, right? It's a good point. So yeah, he's introducing this problem, this solution to the problem, that it could be that the person that borrowed it wants it so much, he's claiming that it got lost and stolen, and really he's keeping it, and he's such a great guy if he's paying for it. But what do you mean? He's really actually stealing it and paying for it, and because he knows it's going to go up in price. I don't know, whatever it is, but he's really a thief. Yeah, we're going to see in the Gemara. We'll see. Let's see. When we come to the question, let's see if it still holds. It's like that. Okay, so what's the solution? He says that the Rav Huna says that he has to take an oath that it's not in his possession. My timer. What's the reason for this oath? Maybe he set his eyes on it, which means that he wants to keep it. Where's the question? Listen to this. You have to follow. You have to concentrate by this one. There's going to be 4 cases. It's actually very simple, but the way it writes it is like more complicated than that. If someone lends his friend money, and his friend, let's say we have Reuven and Shimon here. Reuven lends Shimon money, so Shimon gives Reuven a collateral. Yeah, the problem is not that Shimon doesn't pay Reuven back. That's usually the problem. But over here, Reuven has lost. Reuven has lost the mashkin. He's lost the collateral. So Shimon says, "Okay, well, look, I gave you the collateral, you lost it, so that's considered payment." However, the Reuven tells to Shimon, "Look, I lent you a selah, and shekel hayashava. However, your collateral was only worth half $1. I lent you $1, that was worth half $1. You still owe me another 50 cents." So Shimon says to Reuven, no, the collateral was worth a whole $1. I don't owe you anything. He's pater. Did he? Was there any partial admittance here? Did he admit to anything that would make him chayav and made b'miktzas? No, he's not admitting to anything. Shimon is saying that I owe you 0. So he's pater. He doesn't have to pay. He doesn't have to take an oath. Let's say he says, I lent you a selah, $1, and your thing was only worth 50 cents, a shekel, half a selah. Your collateral. So Shimon says to Reuven, it was worth 3/4. I know I agreed to the $1, but it wasn't worth half $1. My collateral was worth 3/4. So then he's chayav. Why is he chayav? Because he's made of a mixtas. he's agreeing that he owes
Chayav
1/4.
shvua
He's
or
chayav
chayav-
shvua, which means basically that if he doesn't want to swear, he's going to have to pay. The shvua would exempt him, but he's chayav the shvua. Now, we had two cases. One where he's exempt and one where he's chayav. We're talking about Shimon, because Reuven is claiming from Shimon that you owe me from the money that you borrowed. You haven't paid it back 100%. Okay. Next case is where Shimon is going to be claiming from Reuven that the collateral that I gave you was worth more than the debt, and you actually owe me. Okay, you ready for these two cases? I only borrowed from you a dollar, but the collateral that I gave you was worth $2. And Reuven says, no, I lent you $1, and the collateral that you gave me, come on, that was only worth $1. So, Potter, he's exempt over there also because Reuven, which the borrower is claiming from the lender, that you owe me money for the collateral. Reuven is denying everything. Let's say the next case, Shimon claims from Reuven that the collateral that you were holding was worth 2. I agree it was worth more than the loan, but it was only worth 5 quarters. It wasn't worth, you're claiming it's worth 8 quarters. It's only worth 5 quarters. It's worth more than the loan, but not so much. I only owe you 75 cents. So there he says, chayev. What's he chayev? Chayev the oath. Might have been mixas. Okay. Now the brisa continues. It says, Mi nishba. Who takes these oaths? It says, Misha pikadin etzli. The one that had the collateral in his possession. Why is that?
So he's claiming that he doesn't have to even pay collateral at all. He didn't even. That's right.
The lender was holding a collateral that he lost.
Right.
So the person's claiming from him that not only was my debt paid up, but you actually owe me money because the collateral was worth more than the debt.
Oh, wow.
So now the borrower is claiming from the lender that you owe me money. So depending on what his response is, how much the collateral was worth, that's gonna be, is he gonna be chayav shvua or is he gonna be exempt? If he says, if he agrees that he owes some money, then he's gonna be chayav shvua. If he denies everything, then he's exempt. Who has to take the oath? Misha pikadin letzli. So the one that's holding the collateral. If Shimon has to take the oath to its price, if Shimon would say that it's worth 2, and have to take an oath to that, then what would be going on now is Reuven would pull out the collateral and disprove Shimon. Now Shimon would be pasaleidas, it would be invalid for testimony. So basically took a false oath. We don't want that someone that's taking an oath should be able to be disproven. So we want the one that's taking the oath should be the one that's holding the collateral. No one else can just basically that it shouldn't be a setup. We don't want a setup here for the oath to be shown to be a false oath.
Set up to fail.
So we don't set up to fail. The Gemara says, "Hey, which case were you talking about when you said that you want Reuven to take the oath? You want the lender to take the oath." Ilema seifa. If we say we're talking about the last case, he's claiming that it's worth 2, right? Shimon's claiming from Reuven, the borrower is claiming from the lender that it was worth double the amount of the loan, and then he's saying that Reuven is saying no, it was only worth a quarter more than the loan. It was only worth 5.
Is the value of what's being borrowed, if not less,
or more. It depends what he has. He says, well, what are you gonna? Sometimes people they want to borrow a safer. Used to do this in the shul, so I'm borrowing a safer. They say, okay, leave your license here, and when you return it, we'll give you your license back. Leave your cell phone here. So the guy says, no, I'm just running. It's like very quick. They say, okay, leave your car keys. Could be. Could be on the houses. Sometimes it's like that. Yeah. Right.
Like the lender always wants to have like leverage.
Right. So if we say we're talking about the last case, so typically the shvua gabi malvi. Why do you have to tell me that you're concerned that maybe the Reuven's going to pull out the collateral and then prove that Shimon is a liar? There's nothing to do with that. Reuven has to take the oath because Reuven is the one that's a Maida b'miktzas. He said that I agree it's worth more, but the amount that you're saying, I don't agree to. So he's a regular Maida b'miktzas. He's a partial admitting, which he has to take the oath. It doesn't have to do with this other logic that maybe he's going to pull out the collateral and disprove Shimon.
Well, let's say someone was borrowing like a pencil, and then his collateral was his car keys. Lost the pencil. It's like, so I'm taking the car now.
No. So then he would say, okay, I'm going to pay for the pencil and give me the car keys. Yeah, that's the collateral is just there that you can hold it, then leverage. So the Hakamayda b'miktzas Satayna has nothing to do with the reason that the Brisa said. Ela Amar Shmuel. Rather, Shmuel says Hareisha. He's talking about the first case. Now, this is an interesting story because here Reuven was claiming from Shimon that the collateral was only worth half the debt. Shimon says it's worth 3/4 of the debt. Shimon is the Maida b'miktzas. Shimon does not take the shvua. Reuven takes the shvua. Because we're afraid if Shimon's going to take the shvua, he's going to take the oath, Reuven's going to pull out the collateral and disprove him, and setting him up for failure. Okay, so before we get to that, I just told you the end of the Gemara. But the Gemara starts off with Maya Reisha. What do you mean at the first case? The first case, there was no shvua at all. So it says Asay for the Reisha. The second case of the first cases, which means we divide this 2 and 2, of the first 2 cases and then the second 2 cases. So we're talking about the second of the first cases, which is Selahil B'Sichalav Shekla Yeshava. Reuven claims from Shimon that I lent you a selah, which is let's say $1, and the collateral that you gave me was only worth 50 cents. And the collateral was worth 75 cents, so I agree I owe you 25. Based over there is chayiv. He has to make an oath. Shimon has to take the oath. However, but we don't say that Shimon takes the oath. The shua gabi loivo v'amraban lishtaba malva. We don't say that Shimon should take it. We say Reuven should take the oath. Maybe he's going to take the oath. Shimon would take the oath, and Reuven would pull out the collateral, and it would set up for failure. Now, all of this was introducing a question. The question on Rav Huna. Rav Huna says that every time someone tries to exempt himself, he always has to take an oath, even if he's paying, even if he's not exempt, even if he's paying, he always has to take oath that it's not in his possession. One second. You're all worried that Reuven's going to pull out the collateral and say that, Shimon, you're a liar. Look at what its value is. If we're going to accept the teaching of Rav Huna, given the Mishtal v'Malva, he already took an oath. Reuven already took an oath that it's not in his possession. So how could he then pull it out later and say, you're a liar? He's the biggest liar. He took the oath that he doesn't have it. Amar Rava Rabba Sheish Edim Shenisra. We're talking about a case where he did not take an oath because we had witnesses that it got burned. So, okay. The Gemara thinks it resolved the problem here. So that's why he's able to pull it out. It says, so where did he pull it out from? The Gemara asks, it's like the magician that pulls it out of the hat. So where do you get it from if it got burnt? So Amar Rav Yosef, not that it got burnt. There's witnesses that it got stolen. So it says, okay, so where do you get it from if it got stolen? The Gemara answers the Torah Chamaisila. That Reuven went and he got it back from the thief. That's how he's able to disprove Shimon. So we don't want Shimon to take the oath because Reuven is going to go and get the oath back from get the collateral back from the thief and disprove Shimon's claim, his oath. So the Gemara says, Yachi, you're setting up. This is problematic now because what are you resolving? You don't want Shimon to take an oath because Reuven's going to go and get the item back from the thief and disprove Shimon as a liar. So if that's the case, so so what are you gaining? So now what are you going to do instead? You're going to have Reuven take the oath, but Shimon's going to go find the thief and disprove Reuven. How can you have anyone take the oath It's set up for failure if you're worried about someone finding the thief. The Gemara says, no, that's not a concern by us. Because Bishleim Malva Yodaman Ka'il V'Nafik B'Besiv also V'Torach HaMaisila. The Malva was keeping the collateral, the lender was keeping the collateral in his house. He knows where his maid lives. He knows where the people, the workers that were in the house, he knows all of them. He can go back on his cameras and find like who was the last person there and try to find it. However, how do you expect Shimon to be able to find the thief when the item wasn't in Shimon's house, it was in Reuven's house? He knows who went in the house that day, that he had someone fixing the sink, and he was the guy that took the collateral. Okay. Abaye gives another text. Maybe he's going to claim and say, I thought it wasn't in my possession, but I found it. I said it was lost. Instead of whatever. It says, and now I found it. So even if he took the oath, he can still find it. Doesn't mean he can't find it. Take a note that it's not in my possession. Turned out it was somewhere cleaning for Pesach. I found it.
Fell behind the bookcase.
Fell behind the bookcase, right? Ravashi says, Zenishba v'zenishba. Can actually have both people swearing. What's Ravashi resolving over here? If we Zenishba she'ein b'rshusei, the Reuben has to take an oath that it's not in his possession. V'zenishba kama yeshava, but Shimon can swear how much it was worth. V'achi kamar. And what the Mishnah was really saying is minish batchila, not who takes the Maida b'mikzas oath, how much it was worth. Not what the Mishnah was saying, what the Brisa was saying, was that who takes the oath first. Malvinish batchila. The lender takes the oath first because Shema Yeshava Zev Yitzeles Bikadin. Because maybe after Shimon takes the oath, how much it was worth, that it was only worth 3/4. The Malva is going to say, yeah, now I know you're a liar. Yeah, he pulls it out. And okay. Rav Huna bar Tachlifa Mishmei de Rava Maresha de Seifa Tiyufta de Rav Huna. Rav Huna bar Tachlifa, he says in the name of Rav, he says that we have a problem according to Rav Huna, because according to Rav Huna, when the person always has to take an oath that it's not in his domain. So if the case was like this, Shimon tells to Reuven, I borrowed only $1 from you, but the collateral was worth $2. Potter. So, and Reuven says, I lent you $1, and what you gave me, the collateral was also only $1. I don't know you anything. So over there it says that he's exempt. But if you're going to accept the words of Rav Huna, that according to Rav Huna, that Reuven has to take an oath anyway. What's the oath? That it's not in his possession. So we can always impose an oath on him. Why? It's called Gilgal Shvua. We roll over the oath based on, if once you take one oath, I think we said Gilgal Shvua Daraisa, that you can include in that oath extra things. So once he's taken oath that it's not his domain, you can add in how much it was worth. Ravashi. Ravashi says, we're talking about over here, when it says that he's exempt, it's because the loiva trusts the malva that he never took. An answer to Ravashi's question, the loiva trusts the malva that it's not in his domain. And so therefore he says, you don't have to take that oath. He doesn't have to take that oath. So now that we don't have the Gilgal Shvua that he would take the oath of how much it was worth. The Gemara says, oh, if that's what's going on, so why doesn't the Malva trust the Leiva? You're telling me the Leiva trusts the Malva, the Shimon trusts Reuven that it's not his domain, so why doesn't Reuven trust Shimon that it was worth 2? It says, like him, Leiva but he doesn't trust him. Like him, Leiva means he doesn't trust him. No. The Meimar Maleiva, Likim Malva. He says, the question is like the question. I'm sorry, I'm confusing the 2 points here. The question is like this: if the Leiva trusts him that it's not his domain, why doesn't he trust him the value? So he says like Kimli Bagave, the guy doesn't know the value. I know the value because it was my item. So V'nehemni Malva Leiva the Kimli Bagave. So why doesn't the Malva trust the Leiva of its value? So it says Leimehem Lei. The Malva doesn't trust the Leiva. Reuven doesn't trust Shimon. Shimon trusts Reuven that it's not his domain. He doesn't trust him about the value because he doesn't know it. But Reuven doesn't trust Shimon about the value. Maishna Leiva the Memle La Malva, Maishna Malva the Memle La Leiva. So why does Shimon trust Reuven and Reuven doesn't trust Shimon? It says Leiva Mekaim Le B'Malva to Mr. Sherm Tanchin. Leiva's thinking like this: look, I needed money, and Reuven's the rich guy. How did he get so rich? Must be he's an honest guy. That's how he got rich. Yeah. Malva Mekaim Le B'Leiva V'Selef Begdim Yashtim. Says how come the Malva doesn't trust the Levi? He says why is he poor? Probably because his behavior. That's why he deserves it. So we shouldn't trust him. Yeah, that's a possible psychology. People have the reason why people are poor. It has to do with their something in their behavior. They did something wrong. It has nothing to do with luck. That's what people think. At least that could be what they think. Okay. Okay, let's leave it over here.
Woo!
But
Thank you.
isn't
Have a
the
great
value-
day.
Tell me again.